Give you some ideas of why conservation is important, and I put that top left one up there to see if you can remember something that was said yesterday. Okay, so let's hear you. You've got 2 minutes to discuss those pictures. Why is conservation important? Why even bother? What I thought was really interesting, the protection of the wildlife there is what Yellowstone has become all about, but people have forgotten about the protection of the landscape and of the small things, the microorganisms. And what did he say yesterday that microorganisms are very, very important for? Right, so you've got microorganisms can be used to try and see if there's any way we can synthesise them into prevent diseases or even for cures for diseases. Okay, so can you see how the act of conservation actually in the long run does benefit humankind? It's not a pain in the backside activity. You know, that, oh my God, you know, you want me to go out and mend this or do this, or, you know, I can't be bothered, I just want to sit here and watch TV. Yeah, well, at the end of the day, you're not doing yourself any favours in the long term. So Hetty, you can tell us about this one. So we've got 2 people walking through a park. So why is it important that we've got green spaces and we conserve these green spaces?
Quality of life for the people living there, and it's generally nice. It also helps reduce like CO2 because of cars, emission and stuff. It absorbs the carbon dioxide from that.
In fact, there's scientific proof that green spaces do what for human beings? That nature does what for human beings?
It's good for us. It makes us like happier and calmer and generally nicer.
Yeah, there's scientific evidence that says that being out in natural surroundings is actually beneficial to human well-being.
Hello, this is the video diary entry for day 3, which is Friday the 20th of July. This was a day themed on conservation, and so we were looking at wolves, elk and bears mainly today.
This afternoon we did our own kind of conservation, and there was lots of different groups that did different things.
How would you deal with nuisance bears? Now, of course, these are bears which have been kind of like moved from a wild scenario down, into now human reliant bears. What would you do about those? How would you minimise conflict with stakeholders? So you need to think about who are the stakeholders. Obviously, the bears are, the conservationists are, farmers are, but are there any other stakeholders as well? How would you provide education? So to the layperson. What would you go into schools? Would you put on certain projects? What would you do with that? And this one, it's quite a big one, but so you may need to split it up, narrow it down. But how would you secure their habitat to allow them to thrive in the wild?
also we went to Grizzly Encounters, which, as the name kind of suggests, is a bear sanctuary. It was really interesting. It's open to the public, and there we had grizzly bears and Alaskan brown or black or something bears.
Black bears.
Black bears, yeah, Alaskan black bears. Sorry, mine's not working. It's 10:15. So that was very interesting. We saw what they were eating. It was mainly fish, basically. They seemed to like fish. And then we were told by one of the people that work there about what to do if we encounter bears, besides taking photos, which I would do, to be honest.
Example for a female down here in the lower 48 states, she is considered a grizzly. So size, body type, that's an example for down here for south. Males down here are roughly 500 to 700 pounds. Brutus over there in the pond, you would not be able to tell. He's kind of like an iceberg right now. You see the little bit on top, and the majority of him is underwater. Okay? Brutus is just under 900 pounds. The reason he is so much larger, his bloodlines originate from Alaska, so he's considered an Alaskan brown bear. Okay? So, are you guys planning on doing any camping or hiking in the area?
We're hiking around Yellowstone.
You're going in Yellowstone?
Yeah, we're just like walking around places.
Okay. Well, first thing you guys need to understand is that bears can be dangerous, in case you guys didn't know that. So, there are 5 rules of bear safety that everybody needs to follow that can stop a bear attack from happening in the first place. I strongly suggest you take these rules to heart, because the first thing I tell people about bears is to never underestimate them, mentally or physically. They classify a bear's intelligence as just under primate, which is the equivalent to a smart 7-year-old human child. So they are very smart animals. These guys can run 35 to 40 miles an hour. Grizzly bears in 3 body lengths, so they are very quick and very agile. They are extremely powerful. We did a test with Brutus in our first show for National Geographic Wild to see how tough he actually was. So we brought in 3 considerably larger rocks, a crane with a scale on it, and put a piece of fresh salmon underneath it. And the last rock that Brutus moved was over 1,800 pounds, over 3/4 of a ton, and he used 1 arm. So the amount of power they have is ridiculous. So you want to stay on their good side. Right? So 5 rules of bear safety. Rule number 1, you guys are doing a good job, is stay in a group. Out of the hundreds of bear attacks that have happened over the years, not 1 attack happened with a group of 4 or more people. There is strength in numbers in any situation, for a couple of reasons. If you look at Brutus's head, you can see how small his eyes are. Everybody see that? They're nearsighted like us, so they don't see well at distance. So if you're still at a good distance from the bear in a group, they can't tell the space in between everybody. So everybody will blend together and look like a very large animal. Animals still have common sense. Unfortunately, common sense left most of the human race a long time ago. Mark Twain back in the 1890s said common sense is not very common these days. It's even more prevalent over 100 years later. But they still have it. It tells them to stay away from something bigger than they are. So stay in that group of 4 more people, you look like a very large animal. The cooler in the front is what most people have. And you guys seem like a smart group. Does this look bear-proof? Not at all, right? So that cooler needs to be emptied, locked up, or kept out of reach. Luckily, this was just Brutus. It took him less than 2 seconds to smash that thing apart. If that was a wild bear, he would then have to be taken out of the ecosystem. Once he has success with 1 cooler, he's going to go look for the next one and put people in danger. The one behind it is a bear-proof cooler. Brutus worked on this for over 6 hours and was still unable to get inside. And you can definitely see he tried. There's some good teeth marks and claw marks all over it. He took the straps off the front, worked on the handles, took the feet off the bottom, whatever he could think of to try to open it. Once he got a hold of the plug, he did put a hole in it. But there's 1.5 inches of insulation, an entirely another layer of this very dense plastic. Once he's seen that other layer, he gave up. That's way too much work. Brutus will go inside and get hand-fed. He's not worried about fighting over it. The only thing he could not figure out. It has a hole through the lid in the bottom, put a bolt through it. Bears out in the wild do not carry wrenches. So, lock everything up. I've had a couple guys go, well, what a pain. If I want to go get another beer, I gotta go get the wrench, take these bolts off every time, put them back on every time. What a pain. I said, have you ever heard of a ratchet? Okay. If you're really, really lazy, get yourself a bit driver. You take it off in 2 seconds. Right? Guys, anybody know what a bit driver is?
More or less.
A drill? What? No?
So, wearing sunglasses does not help our situation. Can you tell that I'm looking at your feet right now? Not at all, right? So I'm actually going to have to turn my head. I still have full visual contact of where she is, but I'm not staring at her. Okay? The second, I'm going to try to keep her calm. And third, I'm going to back away very slowly. No quick gestures or sudden movement. Okay? I don't want any trouble. You go your way, I'll go my way.
She doesn't make it friends.
Chase them. Okay? So what I'm showing her is respect and space. That's all anything wants. I'm not cowering away from her. I'm not forcing her to make any quick decisions, forcing her to leave. I'm showing her that we're equals, but I'm going to go this way. The entire time I am doing that, I am also taking the safety off of my bear spray. But if she does change her mind, this will change her mind. Take the chance. And everybody stand next to the grizzly bear.
So we learned a lot about bears.
And how to tell different
Oh yeah,
bears.
we learned how to tell the difference between grizzly bears and brown bears. Grizzly bears have got big kind of raised shoulders, and they're
Very long claws.
long claws that go out like that. And they've got sticky, and they've got
Like round ears.
rounded
And
ears,
they've
like,
got a bold face as well.
meanwhile, black bears have got hands like claws like this. They don't have the shoulder thing, and their ears are just little kind of.
And
Like
they've
that.
got kind of more of a pointy face, and yeah, their claws are generally a lot shorter. But you can't actually tell by the fur colour, because you can get a black bear that has brown fur and all different colours, so you just
Yeah,
got
you can
to...
get black brown bears and brown black bears, and you can get whiter things and cream and cinnamon and stuff. It's like kind of, it's like, you know, those paint things at home place.
Yeah.
You can basically get a bear in every colour.
You guys all on that side? Everybody thinks that's a grizzly bear? Yeah. Really?
We also played a game called Wild Watubi,
Yeah.
something like
Or
that.
Tiki or something.
Yeah, some wild or something.
Yeah.
And it was basically showing us how populations of elk went up and down, and when we introduced predators as well. So it involved some people were elk, some people were natural resources, such as food, water or shelter, and you had to go and collect those natural resources and see how the populations went up and down. But when wolves were introduced, you could see how the population stayed fairly balanced. And then when we started introducing natural disasters like droughts, fires and diseases, and then culling at the end, you could see how that affected the whole thing, which was really interesting.
We did about the wolves and what they were like, the timeline in Yellowstone, and so they started off just like being normal, and then they got hunted and their numbers just went down, and then they went completely extinct, and then from the Yellowstone area.
So something else we were looking at was the consequences of what was happening. So the removal of the wolves from the ecosystem, because they were a keystone predator, that meant that they occupied basically a very, very important position in the whole food web. So when they died, it meant that elk numbers went up very drastically because the coyotes couldn't control the elks. That meant that the elk started eating all of the trees around here, and they went in decline. So now the wolves are back in full force. That's a really good thing. And it's also made the Lamar Valley, which we're going to tomorrow, or no, on Sunday, one of the best places to see wolves in the world, which should be good.
This afternoon and this evening, we went to a wolf sanctuary called the Howlers Inn. We learnt a lot about wolves and like how they like to be, and they're very much like a dog, to be honest.
So for reintroducing wolves and the effects of culling wolves, at least my group was making kind of a flow chart of what happened. So,
Go us.
Yeah, they've all brought them.
Oh my gosh, look at you guys.
Did you bring your one?
It's here. It has a wolf on it.
We want,
Actually,
Mary Martha, we want you to keep this one, this green one.
my one. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wow. That's so cool. You got, who did the drawing? That's fabulous. Wow.
Conservation can be expensive, emotional, and tough work.
you definitely need the devotion and drive to make it effective. The Howlers Inn take in captive-bred wolves that could not be released into the wild. By combining their B&B business in a beautiful setting with the wolf sanctuary, the owners have been able to develop a sustainable conservation model.
The white wolf that you see over there to the left, his name is Chief, and he's completely blind.
Oh, that's Chief, is it?
That's Chief. He had a stroke last year.
Yeah, I remember you saying.
It's nice and shady.
Yeah.
So the two real dark ones, the one there and the one over here, those are our 1-year-olds at Chinook and Tahoe. We haven't quite figured out where they fit in the pack yet. And then the...
Are they the pups of these?
Well, we don't know. We neuter and spay,
Oh,
so we don't do any breeding.
I see.
They're actually half-brothers of the other 3.
I see. Where do you get the wolves?
These 5 have come from a place up near Kalispell. So there's a game farm up there that physically mature about 2. Yeah. Emotionally mature about 3. If they think they're going to take over, they're going to be about 3 years old. Yeah. You just keep watching, don't you, bud? Those are our grumpy old men. We have 3 in there. They're 15 years old.
Wow.
Average lifespan in captivity is 10 to 12. So they're really pushing the limits. We count them every morning, make sure we've seen all 3.
Yeah.
One of them's blind.
Yeah.
He had a stroke last year.
Oh.
So we had to take her in, so she got weighed. Other than that, we don't know. I would estimate the difference between she and Kiowa is probably about 18 pounds. I'd put Kiowa at about 90, 95. The 2 brothers, maybe 100. Comanche probably 130.
Probably lighter right now because they've lost their winter weight.
I
was reading, we never really knew how much weight they put on in the winter. We know they add weight.
They add a lot
I
of
read
weight.
recently that between their weight and their fur they add in the winter, it's a third of their body weight.
Wow.
Yeah, these guys are all slim for the summer right now. Compared to this fur.
So that's really soft.
Yeah, and that's what they've shed most of that now, and they'll put that back on. Probably, actually, in about a month, they'll start regrowing that fur to keep them warm in the winter.
About a week and a half. There's another sample, of course.
Yeah. So so they have 2 layers of fur.
Visitors who stay at the Howlers Inn are intrigued and mesmerized by the wolves. During their stay, they get the chance to become more educated and aware of the work of howlers. The income from guests doesn't just sustain the business, it also sustains the sanctuary, with many guests returning year upon year, as much to see how the wolves are doing as to indulge in the hospitality of the hosts and the amazing scenery. The Howlers Inn is a great example of a business with environmental diversification, sustainability, and ethical practices.
I personally did work on bird boxes, restoring and putting out new bird boxes to try and get more wildlife to the area, especially these bluebirds that are really beautiful.
Ken Temple, a retired microbiology professor from MSU, was the main resident of the house. An environmentalist himself, he volunteered in a project to provide habitats for native birds. He built bird boxes with different sized holes and set them up around the property. By banding the birds, studies were made into their movements and population. Since Ken moved out of the house and closer to family due to age, the bird boxes have fallen into disrepair.
Meanwhile, the group that I was in was reducing the fire hazard of the area, because there's a lot of dry leaf litter and branches on the floor in the forest over there. and that obviously creates a big fire hazard. Now, normally we shouldn't remove that because it's actually vital for loads of species in the ecosystem that fires happen, but we're just doing it around this property. So we removed all of the main fire hazards and then we built a little den because we're finished.
The third group investigated the drainage of one of the fields. Using a GPS, they walked its perimeter to work out the area. With climate data, they estimated the amount of runoff that would be caused if an average amount of snow cover was to melt. However, a lot of assumptions were made, including the snow melting all at once. Nevertheless, it was a good starting study to see if the field's culvert is sufficient enough to prevent flooding. If you were to continue the study, what further data would you need? Conservation. From simple DIY around your house in your local area, to dedicating your entire life to a cause or diversifying a business in order to benefit the flora and fauna, everyone can find their own level of conservation and take part too.